Most of the outrage over my new film, Am I Racist?, has come predictably from the left, but they aren't the only ones who found reason to complain. We've also been scrutinized from the right, specifically from some on the Christian right, for the methods we use to make the film. And I'll give two prominent examples. First, Andrew T. Walker, who's a theology professor and commentator, tweeted this in response to the film, quote, "I just saw Matt Walsh's Am I Racist? Entertaining and definitely illuminating on the absurd ideological struggle sessions our culture has gone through and our overcorrection on race. Still, much of the film was accomplished through deception. I'm not a fan of that tactic. Outside of legally declared war, deception is enormously difficult to justify, especially deceptions that do not involve immediate questions of life and death, or deceptions willfully brought about and not occurring as a result of someone else's actions. Walsh's right to capture and name the absurdity, the method to do so is highly questionable." Now, following up on this critique, Denny Burke wrote an op-ed for a Christian news site called World with this title, "Is owning the libs a justification for lying? Matt Walsh's tactics in making his film raise questions." Here's a bit of that piece. "The film lampoons diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and features Walsh posing as a DEI expert to expose and ridicule actual DEI experts in a Borat-style subterfuge that engages DEI proponents who are unaware that Walsh is not who he says he is. A day before the film hit theaters, one of the duped DEI experts released a statement about her part in the film. Robin DiAngelo claimed that Walsh lied to get her to take part in the film. Walsh says he didn't actually lie to her, but simply told her that he was making a documentary about anti-racism, adding that DiAngelo was well paid for her appearance. I wasn't there for the conversation between DiAngelo and Walsh, so I obviously am not privy to what was actually said to procure participation. Did Walsh outright lie, or did he simply give part of the truth without giving all of it? According to Walsh, it was the latter. According to DiAngelo, it was the former. I'll leave it to others to sort out." Now, I do want to pause here to make a not insignificant point. He admits that he doesn't know if I lied or not, and yet he essentially accuses me of lying in the title of the piece. The whole editorial is written around the assumption that I did lie. So if you don't even know if I lied, which you admit that you don't, are you not promoting a potential falsehood in the very article where you lecture me for my alleged falsehoods? We'll return to that in a moment, but reading on, let me just say up front, exposing and lampooning DI lunacy is a good cause. I want to see the demise of this woke ideology as much as Walsh does. But still, is it okay to use lies in service of the truth? Christians who take Scripture seriously understand that we have a duty to tell the truth. Nothing can be clearer from Scripture than our obligation to speak the truth. Over the centuries, Christians have thought long and hard about what our moral obligation is if speaking the truth conflicts with another moral duty. I happen to hold the view known as non-contradicting absolutism, which says that moral norms only come into apparent conflict, but never into actual conflict. If we understood the situation and our duties correctly, we would see that there is a way of escape no matter the situation. This means that our obligation to tell the truth cannot be set aside merely to own the libs or even for the noble purpose of taking down the DEI regime. I say 3 cheers for those fighting the good fight, but let's honor the truth when we do. Let me start by filling in the rather crucial blank space in Denny Burke and Andrew Walker's analysis. Did I directly lie to these people? No. I don't think that's an accurate term to describe what I did. I did give my name as Stephen in the opening seminar scene, but intentionally said it in a way so that it'd be clear that I wasn't telling the truth. It's acting. I'm playing a character. That's part of the comedy of the scene. The joke is that they obviously won't believe it. I can't even believe I have to explain this. Like and I don't want to have to explain the joke because once you do that, it isn't that funny. But I've heard even when I'm asked the second time my name and I go, it's Stephen. I'm stuttering over it, and there are people responding to that as if I really got like I accidentally got tripped up, and then oh no, I was exposed. No, it's funny that I was stumbling over my own name when that's the point. That's the joke. It's a film. I'm acting in that. I'm not really, that was the point of it. Even the wig I wear for the rest of the movie is comically and deliberately unconvincing. Now, it turns out that it did convince a lot of people, but that is also part of the joke. So I don't want to spend this whole conversation, though, quibbling over what qualifies as deception. So purely for the sake of argument, I will accept their framing. Let's call it deception for now. If I agree with that premise, which I don't, but if I do, I could still defend it. After all, deception is used by undercover journalists all the time. That's the only way we know that about Planned Parenthood selling aborted baby parts, for example. Deception is used by undercover cops. It's used to catch pedophiles and murderers and drug traffickers. It's not difficult to think of dozens of examples where deception, up to and including outright lying, is used in ways that are rarely found objectionable. Indeed, to take the position that deception is always wrong, which is what at least Burke seems to be arguing, is to say that undercover police work and undercover journalism and all those other dozens of examples simply should not be done. And if that's your view, fine. But I think it's absurd on its face. Should we just never use undercover work to catch pedophiles? Like, should we just say that, well, if the only way we can catch them is by lying to them, then I guess we're not going to. They're going to go out and abuse more children. Is that really? Would anybody take that position? It's wrong to lie to pedophiles to stop them from abusing kids? I don't think most people would take that position. And I certainly don't. And the reason that I don't is that, in my view, not everyone has a right to be told the truth. Okay? Not everyone has a right to the truth. If somebody broke into my house late at night and I confront them in the living room and he asks me whether I'm alone in the house, I am under no moral obligation to tell him that, in fact, my wife and children are sleeping right upstairs. Now, this is an extreme case, obviously, but it's enough to make the point. That man who has intruded into my home has no right to be told the truth. He is demanding information he has no right to. So, sure, I could refuse to say one way or another. I could, if I wanted to avoid lying, I could say, well, I'm not going to give you that information. But saying I won't tell you if my kids are home is the same thing as admitting that they are. So I would lie. My obligation to protect my family far, far, far outweighs his right to be told the truth. So if we can agree in this extreme case, and it is extreme, but I think everyone would agree on this extreme case, or most people would, then we've at least established that deception and lies are not absolutely wrong. Now, they may be usually wrong most of the time, but they're not absolutely always wrong. Now, granted, the methods we used in our film were not used in a life or death emergency. We also are not undercover cops. We're not even really undercover journalists in the sense that Dave Daleiden was when he exposed Planned Parenthood. We were making a piece of entertainment. Yes. But that entertainment had a point, and the point was to expose an insidious agenda and the people who push it. Specifically, in this film, in our first film, we were looking to expose and humiliate the so-called expert class, our self-assigned moral superiors who impose their insane, morally perverse doctrines on us from on high. If we had to use deception to do it, and again, I use that term only for the sake of argument, then my question to the critics is this: how else are we supposed to do it? How else can these people be exposed? Now, yeah, you can make your arguments, you can present your opinions, you can explain why you think these people are full of it. That doesn't expose them. Not in the way that Robin DiAngelo was exposed, or the professor from What is a Woman, or any of the other unwitting co-stars in our film. They cannot be exposed unless they are out in the open. Okay, they must come down from their perch and make themselves vulnerable. But these people will never do that intentionally. They exercise this profound influence and control over the culture and our lives, and they do it from a distance, insulated, protected. So what then? Either we throw up our hands and we let them hide behind all these layers of intellectual protection, which they've set up for themselves, or we use more innovative and perhaps even ruthless techniques to lure them out from behind that wall that they're hiding behind. That's the basic idea behind our film. We coax them out into the open. We set up the scenario where they can embarrass and bury themselves, and then, yes, we laugh at them. Is it nice? No, it's not nice. Is it necessary? I believe so. Is it moral? I'm confident that it is. Is it funny? Hell yes. It is funny. Now, I want to say one other thing. I'm not offended by the criticism. In fact, I appreciate anyone who watches the film and shares their thoughts about it, whether good, bad, or in between. Films are meant to be discussed, and good films will give you plenty of fodder for discussion. So I welcome all of that. But I can't help but note a certain strain of Christianity, one that does not seem to be confined to any particular branch or denomination, that is always standing by, ready to nitpick and find a reason to be spiritually troubled by any Christian who leaves the realm of theory and argument and discussion and actually tries to go out and do something. So say what you want about me and our movies. I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I know the movies are not. But we are trying to actually fight this culture war. That's what inspired me to get into filmmaking to begin with. It's a creative outlet that I find truly fulfilling in a way that nothing in my professional life ever has been. But it's also a way to change the culture, actively change it. Change it by creating it. I'm tired of talking about it all the time. Criticizing has its place and its use, I suppose. I do it all the time, but I want to do more than that. I mean, it sounds quite cliche to say that I want to make a difference. So sorry for the cliche, but yeah, I want to make a difference, an actual difference. And there is no way to do that without opening yourself to criticism from your own side. And if I've learned anything these past few years, it's that. Anyone on our side who tries to do anything aside from just talking about this stuff, it will get picked apart by their own side. And I know that the justification is always that, well, hey, iron sharpens iron, and we're just trying to make you better. Like, okay, but fine. But it doesn't seem like that always. It actually seems sometimes that there are people on our side who they just really don't want you to do anything. Like all they want to do is just talk constantly. Talk and give my opinion, and here's this, and analyze and criticize. They just don't, they take exception when anyone tries to like stand up and say, okay, I want to do something different here. I'm going to try to go out and do something. This is also why Christian or conservative entertainment has been generally so abysmal for so long. Because anytime one of us tries to do anything remotely interesting or provocative, there are always people on our side lined up and ready to explain why it's problematic and unbiblical and so on. The best way to avoid those complaints is to be boring and safe and to steadfastly avoid pushing any boundaries whatsoever. And this is how we on the right have approached art for a long time. It's why most of it has been so woefully bland. It's why very little of it has made any lasting impact on the culture. I mean, can you make a list of like 5 pieces of conservative art or entertainment that have impacted the culture in the last 20 years? Can you even name 5? Can you name 3? Culture is shaped by art, or misshaped, as the case may be. There is no culture war. We cannot even claim to be fighting it if we are not producing any art of our own. Or if what we produce is only intended to be a pleasant distraction for our own side, like a kind of ideological elevator music. If we want to make films and shows and music that actually moves the culture, then the stuff we make must be challenging in some way. We cannot be totally allergic to anything that seems provocative. Art, after all, should provoke something: joy, laughter, awe, anger, shock, sadness, whatever. It needs to stir the audience in some way, elicit something out of them, bring something out, or else what's the point? Now, I know that a movie like Am I Racist this is not Rembrandt we're talking. I'm not saying it's some kind of staggering work of artistic genius, but it is a film, and film is an art form, which is a long way of saying that we approached the film the way we did and used the methods we did for the sake of getting the message across and exposing the grifters, yes, but also as an artistic choice. And I understand that that justification will be very unconvincing to the kinds of people who make this criticism to begin with. they'll say, well, artistic, that's the only reason. And I'm not the only reason, but it is one of the reasons. But the fact that justification will seem so ridiculous to people on our side is part of the problem. Because look, frankly, if everyone in the film had known exactly what was going on, it would not have been as good of a movie. It would not have been a good movie at all. It would have been me as myself having straightforward conversations with people who already agree with me, because they're the only ones who would have participated. Or else it would be me having a series of debates as predictable and ultimately pointless as the debates you see on cable news every day. It would have been one long, elaborate podcast episode. It would have been a boring, bad, lame movie. I wanted to make a good movie. And making a good movie was, I freely admit, our first priority. Even more than the message, even more than landing a blow in the culture war. We wanted to make a good movie, right? That was our first priority. Number one is it has to be good. Go get good footage, good movie. That's the most important thing here. And if making a good movie is not your first priority, then you shouldn't be making them. This has been the baseline problem for conservative art for as long as I've been alive. It's been made by people who, often though not always, don't care that much about the art itself. The first priority for them is not the art form. And you can tell in the final product. So we're trying to help change that. And if that changes, then so does the culture. And that is why the Christian critics of my new film are today canceled. I do still welcome the criticism, but I just have to end the segment that way because those are the rules and that's how this segment ends. So what can I do? Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out The Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.